Hey guys, I know I haven't been on here in a few weeks. I've been on TikTok mostly. I've found some conversations and things going on over there, and so I've been participating, but it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of me telling Kamala supporters, oh, isn't there a problem with food shortages? And no, none of them want to debate the topic. None of them want to consider the topic. None of them want to talk about it. It's always 100% deflection to something else. Oh yeah, but have you heard how bad Trump is? Blah blah blah. They never want to discuss that topic, and so it's like until that topic is broached, then there can be no progress because food shortages are bad, and I'm not going to support them. Now, I offer them an alternative to Trump. I tell them, Chase Oliver, he is supporting reducing the size and scope of government. That's what needs to be done because we need to get off this government dependence that so many people are on. And really, I think everyone's on because mass production is enabled by services the government provides, security wise. We need security. We need a charity that prevents slavery, that prevents trespassing, that prevents nuclear weapons, that prevents child and animal abuse. And I believe the voters to that charity should vote on what constitutes that abuse with more votes based on how much they donate. Uh, so proportional to their donations. I believe that can get people to contribute because they care about participating in that decision. And I believe that people would contribute because people care about living in a safe society. Um, so I think that's all we need. I think free markets under that structure can literally do everything else that's needed. I think that the Trumpers, with them, I always bring up this. I bring up Jesus because I know that that's an important figure for a lot of Trump supporters. And I point out that Jesus taught compassion and he taught forgiveness. And he said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And I support freedom outside of the bounds of that security force that I mentioned, um, to live your life the way you want to live it. If adults want to use a drug company that doesn't have the government licenses, I don't think government licenses should exist. I think markets can regulate industry. Consumer choice can regulate industry. Private regulators can be funded by consumers to regulate industry. Everything that government does can be accomplished by charity, by uh, private markets. People talk about climate change, and the government's broke, man. Governments cannot repay this debt. I want to see this debt declared officially worthless. I want to see this currency declared officially worthless. And I want to see a portion of the gold reserve distributed amongst the population to capitalize a new and free economy. I want the rest of the government's assets to be liquidated and ultimately dispersed to the population that formerly was within their tax jurisdiction. Uh, Now, I think the population is going to need to have some kind of process to determine who should manage that liquidation estate because there are a lot of different considerations. Should we sell now hold to get a better price later. There's going to be a lot of administrative decisions that need to be made, and that's, I think, where you could use something like democracy, because you have this forced ownership that is uh, by a lot of people, but ultimately people should not uh, jointly own property unless they decide to enter into that kind of agreement mutually with each other, because different people have different morals, different values, different ideas for the best use of assets, of land, of equipment, uh, of labor, and um, markets allow competition. Um, they allow different people to compete for the land they want. Because ultimately, when you don't have consensus, there ends up being a dictator who makes the decisions for everyone. And that's basically where we're heading right now with this political system. It's not good economics, and I don't support it. So, I anyway, getting back to this Jesus thing, he preached compassion. Yeah, moral differences on things like uh, prostitution and drug use and alcohol use and vaccines, religion, these types of issues people disagree on. They don't need to agree on these things for us to transition to freedom, because each landowner will be free to set the policy that they believe in. People with like minded ideas can form communities where they all agree to have those policies, but no one's being forced into something that they don't agree upon. If there's a landowner who doesn't agree this new rule everyone wants, you got to buy them out. You got to figure out how you're going to control that land, or you can move your community to somewhere else. A lot of land transfers are going to need to happen for that reason, for the reason that a lot of people are going to need to migrate to look for labor and look for economic opportunities that aren't going to just appear in a free market in the convenient uh, places where people happen to live right now. To I don't know how it's going to go, where big projects are going to get built, where big labor is going to, there's going to be a big demand for labor, but people are going to be migrating. We need, companies are going to need to liquidate production that took place in this system. Those equipment, the vehicles, the things need to be reallocated. They need to be sold. All of this requires freedom, because the court processes, the compliance processes are too much. No one's going to be able to comply with it, and the currency is going to become fucking worthless anyway. So a lot of the laws that were written with regard to this stable system that isn't even going to exist, and we're going to need real freedom. But freedom should include things like some landowners might decide, I'm talking about like, I said we're not going to abuse children or animals, right? And so, as far as the enforcement of that, if someone uh, molests a child, they are going to, we're going to have the security forces going to remove the no trespassing, their mandate from that person's land for the period of time that between when that child's age and whenever the late age of consent has been determined to be. So 5 years, for 5 years, that person's land is going to be unprotected. Um, And there's a lot of and so if I kind of go through in my book how this is going to work and how justice can be served without government, without a monopoly on a court system. Um, but I mean, we're living in fucking Atlas Shrugged right now. These bridges collapsing. Now we've had the two biggest Canadian freight railroads have collapsed. The auto industry is collapsing. The real estate is on thin ice. Banks are on thin ice. Everything's on thin fucking ice. So we're approaching ground zero. We're going to need real freedom, and that includes in markets that some people aren't going to morally believe should exist. You know, this abortion deal. I believe the object of the pro-life crowd should be to minimize the number of abortions that take place. But I don't believe that that is going to be achieved through a government law. I believe that government laws destroy economic opportunities that would empower people to take care of both the children that they bear and the unwanted orphans of this world. I believe that government restrictions, violent restrictions, have angered many women and have caused many women to get abortions out of anger. That wouldn't have happened had we had freedom and the freedom to adopt and an economically prosperous world, and all the other beautiful things that a free society can offer us. So, Chase Oliver he needs to do all of this. But first, he needs to become the guy that's in there, because he's at least going to be moving us where we need to get. And out of the three, I'm confident that he will be the easiest to convince that a complete abolition will be the only way civilization can survive, and miraculously a way that it can prosper. So I call on the Trumpers for compassion, for peace, for forgiveness, and I call on the left for reason. You guys have a good one.